Have you always wanted to play a Beast Mastery Hunter, but maybe you find it a little bit too complicated, or just having a hard time looking at all your spells and at the same time seeing the fire on the ground? Well, I might have the solution for you. In this video here, I will show you how you can do min-maxing with the single button assistant and playing the Beast Mastery Hunter. We will be going through the stats, the talents, the rotation, and also a little glimpse of gameplay. So after watching this video here, you will know how to min-max with the single button assistant and deal the maximum damage you can do using and utilizing the single button assistant. So let's get to it. So let's talk about stats. What I always recommend is going with the highest upgrade level on items, like when you go from adventure to veteran, champion, hero, myth. So for example, you can see here I have a bow, which is a veteran, or shoulders, which is a veteran. In case I got like a, let's say, adventure item, which is the upgrade level below, I would never take it. Even though if it had better secondary stats, I wouldn't take it, because you simply get so much more agility from the from the items, and also even weapons. You get way more weapon damage, which is very important. But in case I got an item which was the same upgrade level, like a veteran, or champion, or hero, or myth, then I will start looking at the secondary stats. So, first of all, we have Mastery. Mastery is the Beast Mastery Hunter's soul, whatever. I was trying to find a nice word. But increase the damage done by your pets and the damage of your shots. So basically, the amount of mastery you have is increasing your damage of your pets by the same amount of mastery you have, and then half of that is also increasing the damage of your shots. So basically, that we have so much beast damage, like everything, like every ability, like stomp and different spells that beast cleave and so on. Every spell that uses like like a pet to attack, or the pet abilities, or even like when you summon dire beasts, they are all getting the benefit from mastery. And we deal a lot of damage with our pets. I mean, we literally have 2 pets and we keep summoning more pets and so on. So mastery is just like such an important stat. So no matter what, we like mastery. After that, I would recommend going with haste. Haste default, it increases the regeneration of your focus, which is of course the one we use for our spells. So of course we like that. The more focus, the more spells we can cast. It also increases your attack speed, but most importantly, it also it reduces the cooldown on a few spells. You can see like some of your spells has green cooldowns, like these ones here, Barbed Shot. That means that when you actually have more haste, it also reduces the cooldown of those spells as well. So, focus, regeneration, attack speed, lower cooldown on a few spells, and thirdly, it also reduces your global cooldown. Whenever you cast a spell, all your spells like turns around. That's the global cooldown. It's a 1.5 second global cooldown. With when using single button assistant, which is what we're talking about in this video here, it will be increased by 25%, which is basically they are kind of like punishing you for using this button here. So now instead of having 1.5 second global cooldown, you will have 1.8 second cooldown. But of course, the cool thing with single button assistant is that it uses your rotation for you, so you can focus on other stuff in the game, like not standing in fire and using your cooldowns and so on. So yeah. So again, haste does a lot of things, especially when using single button assistant, since it reduces our global cooldown as well, which helps when we're using the single button assistant. Then thirdly, we have critical strike. Critical strike increases your chance to do double damage. And we also have a few talents, which is actually affected by this. For example, we have Go for the Throat. Kill command deals increased critical strike damage equal to 100% of your critical strike chance, which is quite nice. So whenever like you actually critical strike with kill command, it will deal more crit damage depending on how much crit you have, so it kind of like increases there. We also have critical strike chances increased by 4, and we also have you gain 4% more critical strike from critical strike sources. So, you know, like when you get actually crit from like the gear and so on, it actually increases the chance, like it increases how much crit you get from it. We also have when your pet attacks critical strike, it causes the target to bleed for 8% more damage, 8 damage over 6 seconds, which of course is also pretty cool. So we have a few things that, like, you know, have like a good pandang with critical strike, so that's why that's like the next one. And then we have versatility as the last one. Versatility just flat out increases the damage you do and reduces the damage you take. It's a nice stat for PvP, player versus player. It's also nice if you only do like solo gameplay, like if you are a purely solo player who does like delves and so on, like just playing alone, then versatility is also nice because it makes you more tankier, but on paper, doing group content, it's the worst one. Some people does say that if you're more focused on your AoE rotation, multiple targets, you actually switch around your haste and critical strike, even putting haste sometimes to the end of the back. But I don't like that. I like to have like a stat that kind of works for everything, especially with haste increasing the reducing the global cooldown when using single button assistance. So I feel like it's quite cool. But this is the stats I would recommend. Always the highest upgrade level, and then these stats here. When talking about talents, we have two different builds for the Beastmaster Rounder. We have a dungeon build and we have a raid build. Both builds is on my Discord, so in case you want to have the export string that you can use to import it directly into your game, you can go to the Discord and it will be there. But we have a dungeon build and we have a raid build. A dungeon build is basically a multiple damage, like it deals multiple mobs, so like an AoE build. Where the raid build is all about single target damage, like very heavily single target damage. In the dungeon build, we are using Dark Ranger because it is just the supreme when it comes to multiple targets. And in the raid build, we're using Pack Leader because that one is the best one when it comes to single target. In the dungeon build, the difference between the single target build, which is the raid build, and the dungeon build is that in the dungeon build we have these talents over here, and in the dungeon builds we have this. In the raid build we have these over here. So dungeon is taking all the AoE damage here, while the raid build is taking this. Basically, what the dungeon build is that we're getting Wild Trash, which is an AoE spell that deals a lot of damage to all the mobs around you. Now it also does so when you use Kill Command or auto attacks from the pets, they also deal damage to everyone around them. We also get bleeding damage from the pet, and we now also, when you summon additional like the Dire Beast and so on, they also get the Beast Cleave, where they also deal AoE damage. So basically now all your pets, they deal AoE damage, which is pretty cool. On the raid build instead, which you can see here, the raid build here, we are using these over here instead, where we are getting more damage with Barbed Shot, Cobra Shot. Also, we apply all bleeds damage dealt by you and your pet is increased by 10%. Also, Cobra Shot now deals 50% more crit damage. And also, we are having Cobra Shot focus cost reduced by 5, and the damage is increased by 35. So, you know, like spell that deals single target damage is just all increase, which is pretty nice. In the dungeon build, we are using Wild Instinct, where it basically gives bonus to like, when your primary pet uses Stomp, apply Barbed Shot to a target hit by that Stomp. This Barbed Shot will not cause an extra Stomp. But in the raid build, we are using Bestial Wrath, causes your Barbed Shot to deal damage 100% faster for 10 seconds. Which makes sense, because we like to have a random AoE, like random damage in dungeons with like big groups of mobs, where in a raid it's nice to have Blood Frenzy because it makes Barbed Shot deal it's like a damage over time damage very much faster. So that's nice. So again, it's not like the big difference between these two builds. The only thing is like we are using the AoE thing in the dungeon build and we're using the single target stuff in the raid build. Of course, also we are using Dark Ranger in the dungeon build, which is going to give you Black Arrow. Black Arrow is kind of like, it's an execute spell that can only be used on enemies when they have above 80% health or below 20% health. But then we have spells like this one here, where Kill Command has a 20% chance and Barbed Shot has 50% chance to grant Death Blow. And when you get Death Blow, the cooldown of Black Arrow is reset, and your next Black Arrow can be used on any target regardless of their current health. So your normal rotation, which is inside the single button assistant, will keep allowing you to cast Black Arrow. which is super cool. And the last one here is called Withering Fire. Bestial Wrath causes you to surrender to darkness, granting you Withering Fire for 10 seconds. Casting Black Arrow fires a barrage of 4 additional Black Arrows at nearby targets at 50% effectiveness, prioritizing enemies that aren't affected by Black Arrow's damage over time effects. Because it deals damage, and it also deals AoE damage, which is pretty cool. So this build is just like great because it just gives you a lot of random procs with Black Arrow. It also has Bleak Powder, which is probably the most like the main thing with the AoE is like Black Arrow now explodes in a cloud of shadow. So basically the mobs around and behind in a cone is all getting damaged. So like it's just like passive AoE damage all the time. And then in the raid build, we're using Pack Leader, where Pack Leader is all about like summoning additionally beasts. So while in combat every 30 seconds, your next kill command summons the aid of a beast. You can summon the Wyvern, the Boar, the Bear. They all have different things they can do. And also casting Bestial Wrath grant whole of the Pack Leader and causing your next kill command to rouse the nearby wildlife into a stampede, charging your target and dealing 31 physical damage over 7 seconds. Again, you can see summon additional enemies, which is basically gonna help. I mean, if we had Wild Trash and Beast Cleave with it, of course that would also deal AoE damage, but only like every 30 seconds. This one here is a heavily single target damage. So you can see like Pack Leader is just about summoning more mobs, dealing more single target damage, but could also deal okay. Like it's also fine for like multiple target. But the Dark Ranger just has so much more like procs that keeps coming with AoE damage, which is pretty nice. So again, this is the 2 builds we have. Let's now go to the rotation and let's talk about how you do that. When it comes to rotation, Beastmaster Hunter with single button assistant is probably one of the most easy specs to play, because all the spells you have that deals damage and increase your damage and your cooldowns is inside the single button assistant. As you can see here, we have Barbed Shot, Bestial Wrath, Black Arrow, Call Pet, so if you forgot to summon your pet, it will also summon that. Cobra Shot, Kill Command, Revive Pet. If your pet dies, it will also revive it. And it also uses the new AoE ability called Wild Trash, which is the one we're using in the dungeon build. So in the raid build, it won't be using it because it doesn't have it. So the single button assistant is automatically going to go through all this, and it automatically knows when to use, for example, Wild Trash and not Wild Trash. It knows, like, if I'm targeting a single target bot, it will probably still use it because it's still a fine spell to use no matter what, since it deals damage. But it will prioritize AoE abilities on multiple mobs, like whenever there's more than 2 mobs, and prioritize single target abilities when there's only 1 mob. So you don't have to think about that. That's something normally you'd have to think about, but with the single button assistant, you don't have to think about that. So you could say the only thing you actually had, normally I have to like explain like a rotation with a single button assistant when I make these videos, but in this one here we actually don't have to. Normally you could be moving all the time when using the single button assistant as a Beastmaster. You never had to stand still, but with Midnight there is a little change to that. We have this talent here called Wailing Dead, which is giving you Wailing Arrow. Bestial Wrath summon a Dark Hound for 15 seconds after casting Bestial Wrath. It is replaced with Wailing Arrow. So the only thing you have to think about, which is a spell that actually takes cast time, is right after you cast Bestial Wrath. Bestial Wrath is automatically going to be used by a single button assistant. I kind of hope one day they're going to remove it so we can control when we want to use it. But it only has 30-second cooldown, which is okay. So after you have casted Bestial Wrath, it's going to be replaced with the spell called Wailing Arrows. For that one, you have to stand still because it takes like 1 or 2 seconds to cast. So you can see here, I'm going to click one now here, and then it's going to give me a Wailing Arrow, which actually takes a bit of casting time. And now you can actually just move around and deal as much damage you want, just like, you know, moving around, keep moving, and you never have to stand still because your entire rotation is basically instant cast spells. So it's great. Normally people would say, okay, but instant cast spells is usually the spec that deals less damage with single button assistant because it has the highest, it gets most targeted. Now you can see I have Bestial Wrath, so now it's going to be using Wailing Arrow again, so I can't do that. See, I can't do it while moving. So every time you use Bestial Wrath, you just have to stand still for 2 seconds, cast that wailing arrow, and then you can move around again. You never have to stand still. This is probably why the Beastmaster Hunter is probably one of the most easy spec to play with a single button assistant, because you have 2 pets, which basically does everything for you tank-wise, and you can just keep moving around. You never have to stand still. Never. Except when now I use Bestial Wrath, I have to use my wailing arrow, and now I can go back to just moving around. It's pretty easy, as you can see. And the rotation is basically going from Bestial Wrath to using Wailing Arrow, using Black Arrow whenever it can use it, and then it's going to go spamming Kill Command and Barbed Shot. So very, very easy rotation, and you trust me, you're going to deal absolutely fine damage. Now, let me explain what the other spells we have and what they do and when you should be using them. Secondly, we have Tranquilizing Shot, which is this one here. It removes 1 enrage and 1 magic effect from an enemy target. So imagine you're fighting a group of mobs where if you kill a certain mob, then maybe one of the other mobs is getting enraged, dealing like 50 to 100% more damage. Then Tranquilizing Shot can actually remove that, the enrage effect, which is super, super cool. But it also removes 1 magic effect, which, so magic effects is like if one of the mobs is getting a shield on or healing over time ability, like healing, then you can also remove that with Tranquilizing Shot. That is why I have it on number 2, because it's really helpful if a hunter actually keep using this one here, you can really help out. Then we also have Feign Death. Feign Death is basically a spell that the main reason for why you would do it, for example, if like you basically play dead, and if you're fighting like a mob alone, the mob will like stop attacking you and run back to where it was. But in a dungeon, it could be maybe you are doing too much damage. Maybe you are like doing way too much damage. So you pull the mob, like you are taking aggro over the tank. Then you could technically use it, and the threat you have on that mob is going to reset. And now you could just keep bursting again. So it's kind of like this the Fate spell that Priest has, or other spells like I guess Vanish or so on. But it's great because it basically gets you out of combat, it basically resets, and also if you can see your entire team is vibing, you could also use it and it could maybe save you and so you don't die. But it's a great spell, like basically getting the mobs off you in case. Then we have Flare. It's mostly a PvP spell. Like if, for example, if I had War Mode on and I was running around here in open world PvP, then I could like try find a rogue or feral druid by using my Flare. It would basically show them from stealth. Then we have Counter Shot. So Counter Shot is really great because it's interrupting interrupt the mob. So imagine the mob is casting a spell that you don't want it to cast, you want to interrupt it because it deals a lot of damage. So what I could do is like if this mob here was casting a spell, then Counter Shot, and now it would stop casting that spell, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's basically your main interrupter, which you can use every 24 seconds. So pretty nice. Beside of that, we also have Disengage. It's a spell that basically makes you jump back. So imagine the boss is about to cast something big on you and you don't have the time to run away from it because you also want to do a lot of damage. Then you could quickly, like let's say he attacks you in the front here with a big spell, then you could use Disengage this way here and it's going to jump you this way back. Or you can very fast turn around, use it, and then turn back on the boss again. Because it will the where you face, it's going to jump that way back. So that's why it's like very cool to just like quickly spin, use it, and then quickly back at the boss again. But it's just a spell that can help you like either get away or move from a big attack. Then we also have Hunter's Mark. Hunter's Mark is an interesting spell. Because it's a mark that you could use in the start of the rotation, which, I mean, you should be using. So you can see here, the mob is here, like we have this mob over there, then I can use my Hunter's Mark. And now it says here, damage taken increased by 3 can always be seen by the tracked hunter. So you can see Hunter's Mark increase the target damage taken by 3% and can only be applied at a time. So technically we just deal 3% more to this target here. So of course, if this was a boss here, then of course we would be using it on it because then we deal 3% more damage to them. It's just a spell you keep having to like remember to use. Like it's quite, of course, if it's a big group of mobs and they're gonna die fast and maybe not too important, but for example a boss fight or raid boss is quite important because 3% more damage can be quite a big thing, if you know what I mean. Then we also have acceleration. It basically heals you for 30% of your for 30% and your pet for 100%. So basically, if your pet is about to die or you need healing, you can use it and boom, it now heals you for like 30% of HP, your pet's 100%, and then it also heals that amount. So it also heals you for 12% of your maximum health over 8 seconds. But then we also have this spell here. Where was it? Was it this one here? Yeah. So now, when you use exhalation grants you 3% of survival of the fittest. And survival of the fittest activates exhalation at 50% of effectiveness. So basically, when you use exhalation, you also get a 3 second of survival of the fittest, which is a spell that reduces all damage you take by 30% for 8 seconds. But now it will activate it for just 3 seconds. But at the same time, now when you use Survival of the Fittest, which is basically just, it has 2 charges, and the only thing it does is it reduces the damage you take by 30%, but because of this talent here, it now also gives us the healing from acceleration, but 50% of it. So instead of healing you for 30% HP, it's going to heal you for 50% HP, and it's going to heal you for 6% over 8 seconds. So you can see here, this one here heals, like acceleration heals you for big amount, 85k, and then 4k, 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 where then Survival of the Fittest now is healing me for 40k, and then 2k, 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 and then I can use this right after again, 40k, 2k, 2k, 2k. So you technically have 3 healing spells. 1 exhalation, which is the big healing, and then 2 times Survival of the Fittest. You don't have this in the raid build here. It is only in the dungeon build where we use Dark Ranger. We have this one here called Smoke Screen. So, but it is, I love it. Like, it's such a great survival spell. Then we also have Aspect of the Turtle, causes all spells and attacks to miss and reduce all damage you take by 30%, but you cannot attack. So it's basically like a Paladin Bubble. Paladin Bubble is still more powerful, but it's kind of like a Paladin Bubble. Then we also have Aspect of the Teacher. It's going to make you run 90% faster for 3 seconds, and then it's 30% for 9 seconds. So you can see very, very fast for 3 seconds, and then a little bit faster for like 9 seconds. It's a great utility spell to like get away. Then we have your Stun, which is the spell here called Intimidation. For example, again, if you already used Counter Shot on an enemy, like you countered it, you use Counter Shot, now it's casting another spell and you want to interrupt it again, then you have your Intimidation, and your pet will basically stun the target for stunning the target for 3 seconds and nerfy enemies for 0.5. So it's even an AoE stun. I totally forgot that it had this one here. That this bonus one here below it actually also makes everyone stunned, which is nice, because then if there was like 5 mobs, you know, casting a spell at the same time, very unlucky, then you could use Intimidation and it's going to stun them all, which is pretty cool if you ask me. In case your Intimidation and Counter Shot is on cooldown, then you can also use a Freezing Trap, and it will freeze the one target and also make them stop casting. Of course, when you attack them with enough damage, they will like break out of the ice again. But the main point with Intimidation, the main point with Freezing Trap and Counter Shot is to make them stop casting whatever they're casting, which could kill your tank. Then, no one in the meta, they play with Camouflage, but I always want Camouflage, and if you use one of my builds, then Camouflage is a must in my opinion. Camouflage is a great spell. It basically makes you go into like a stealth mode, but at the same time it heals 2% of your HP all the time. I love it. Like, you imagine like when you're running from one group of mobs to another group of mobs and you have like low HP, quickly go into Camouflage and it's going to heal you up like full HP in no time. Or you're fighting a group of mobs, you're almost about to die, then use Feign Death, and then when you are using Feign Death, if you're lucky enough that you actually get out of combat, go into Camouflage, get full HP, and then go out and attack again. I just love it. Like, it's such a good combo in my opinion. Then, of course, we have summon pets, where based on which pet you're using. We also have your pet utilities, where you can like rest them, heal them. Mend pet is probably a spell you should have down somewhere. I actually don't know why I don't have it down, because it heals your pet for 50% of its HP. And then, of course, feed pet, dismiss pet. And then we have Wind Clip, which is a spell where you can slow down a mob for like 50% of their movement speed for 15 seconds, but you have to be in melee, which is kind of weird. And then we have, if your pet is set to ferocity, you can change what your pet is, like if it's ferocity and so on, cunning, and I can't remember the last one, but if it's ferocity, the pet will keep giving you 4% leech, which basically means all the damage you deal, you will heal 4% of that. But it also gives you primal rage, which is the same as heroism, bloodlust. It's the spell you use on, for example, in dungeons, you usually save it for the last boss, or in rage, you save it for the phase where you have to deal most damage. But basically, makes everyone in the raid very big, and you all get 30% more haste for 40 seconds. It's a really, really important spell on good mechanics. Don't just use it, save it for when, for example, on fighting last bosses, or when the team tells you to. Sometimes they will usually say, you know, like Bloodlust or Heroism or BL, stuff like that. Then you know it's you. But if you play with a mage or if you play with a shaman, then you are basically 3 people who can technically use it. So yeah, just so you know. So that was all the spells. And remember, in the dungeon, in the raid build, we have a few less spells. We, for example, don't use a tranquilizing shot. And I think that we also don't use the stun, because there's no reason to stun a boss when you can't stun them. But everything else is pretty much the same, just a little bit less utility spells. But let me switch over to a dungeon and show how I would technically play the specs, even though, I mean, it's quite a fat, easy spec, then I guess it's still fun to see a little gameplay of it. So just to get some fun AoE numbers, we're going to help the tank pull a bit of mobs. Just quickly helping with pulling a few mobs with auto attack. You can see I'm going to go very bottom in the damage meter right now, but just waiting for the tank to get all the mobs together. And now we're going to keep spamming 1. It's going to be using Bestial Wrath. Very important we stand still so we can use Wailing Arrow. I move so you can see cancel the first one. And now we're just going to be spamming 1, and automatically all our black arrows is going to deal AoE damage. Basically our kill command is going to deal AoE damage also, because we have the Beast Cleave buff on. So you can see, keep pressing 1, and it will automatically deal the damage it's supposed to deal. And you can see here, the damage comes from Black Arrow, because the Black Arrow is dealing a great amount of damage, AoE damage. Basically coming from the Bleak Powder. And then we also have Wailing Arrow, Stomp, which of course is a spell from the pet. And then Wild Trash, Bestial Wrath, Kill Cleave, like all the good stuff. It wasn't the same numbers as usually when I make these videos here, where we see like 100k or 200k AoE damage. The AoE burst on the Beastmaster Hunter is a little less like smaller when it comes to compared to other specs. Where, for example, on the Unholy Death Knight, on the Destro Warlock, we hit like almost 100 to 200k damage, because they have just such an insane like AoE burst when we really use it. But here for the Beastmaster Hunter, it's more like a steady flow, because your big cooldown only has a 30-second cooldown. Like, you know, your what is it called? A Bestial Wrath only has a 30-second cooldown, which is quite nice. A Wild Trash every 8 seconds, so it's kind of like a mix between those. So yeah, you don't see those big numbers in the AoE pool like you're seeing with the other AoE classes, like Marksman and so on. I don't know why my pets... Oh, yeah, I'm moving after Bestial Wrath. See, that's the mistake you don't want to do. If you keep moving after Bestial Wrath, you're just going to have pets standing still, and you're not going to cast anything, because it tried to use Wailing Arrow, which is a spell that you have to stand still with. Of course, this is only for the dungeon build. If you are inside the raid build, you don't have to worry about that, since we don't have Wailing Arrow in what is called the raid build. It's only for the dungeon build. So for the boss fight, I thought it was fun to go into the raid build, which is way more focused on single target damage, so we don't have wild trash, but we're going to be using way more single target spells. And also in the raid build, you don't have to stand still at all, because we don't have any casting spell like in the dungeon build. In dungeon build, we have that Wailing Arrow, but here you can see, here you can just keep moving, which is nice, because you might see on my Elemental Shaman video that I had to like move a couple of times on the Elemental Shaman, that I wasn't able to actually deal damage while that. But on this one here, keep moving, shooting, and I mean, everyone will be able to do this. You can keep move if you want. I mean, you don't have to move like I do right now. You could also just stand still. But the cool thing is when you actually have to move, it doesn't matter, because you can keep pressing 1 and it will still deal like great damage. Just keep moving. Let's use our Heroism Primal Rage. Let's just keep moving. There we go. And yeah. Of course, right now my eye level is really bad on this character here, so I will of course not performing the best AoE. We could use, for example, Survival of the Fittest here, since we know we're going to be hitting with damage. And there we go. So remember, these followers here, they scale up to you, so they kind of deal the same damage as you can see. But yeah. And of course you can see that the damage here is way different. We don't have any black arrows or anything like that. It's more barbed shot kill commander, which deals more damage than crowbar shot. So yeah. So again, the dungeon build for multiple targets, the raid build for single target. But of course I know in a mythic dungeon you cannot switch spec just on the go. It's only because it's a follower dungeon that I could just do it without any little thing. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed my little Beast Mastery Hunter guide. Again, this guide here is if you want to play the Beast Mastery with the single button assistant, and don't worry, you can still play this spec here and do full 10 mythic, like level 10 mythic keys and so on, and you'll still do fine. Again, it's all about how good gear you have and so on, but keep pressing 1 and you're gonna make sure that you're at least gonna do pretty decent damage. So yeah. So thanks for watching, really appreciate you all so anticipating for all my new videos, and I will keep them coming. I'm honestly not sure which one is going to be the next one. It's probably going to be Brewmaster Monk, because a lot of people have been asking for that one, but we shall see. But appreciate you all for watching the videos, really appreciate all the support. In case you want the export strings for the talents, you find it on my Discord. And also on my Discord, I will keep updating all the builds all the time and tag the roll call build alerts in case, you know, there's updates to the builds. And yeah, in case you want to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or even become a YouTube member, and your name is also going to be in the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.